Big news for Raiders fans. The Las Vegas Raiders have made a big move. They've officially signed linebacker Landon Roberts, as reported by Adam Schefter. It's a one-year deal worth $3 million. A smart, value-based signing. Now, Roberts is 30 years old, so this isn't some long-term commitment. But trust me, this guy is going to play a big role for the Raiders this season. I've watched his tape and we'll break that down in a moment. But before we dive into that, there's something else we need to talk about. Some Raider fans aren't happy with how free agency has gone so far. Many feel like not enough has been done. But is that really the case? I have some thoughts on this, and I think by the time we're done you might feel a little better about the situation. Oh, and there's more. The Raiders also signed a cornerback, and we'll get into that soon. But let's focus on Landon Roberts first, because this move could be bigger than you think. Stay tuned, because we're just getting started. Why? Great defenses always have great linebackers. This isn't surprising at all. Look around the league. Wherever you see a great defensive coordinator, you'll find top-tier linebackers. It's just how football works. Take Robert Saleh, for example. Back when he was with the San Francisco 49ers, he had Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, two elite linebackers. Then he moves to the New York Jets, and suddenly they have one of the best linebacker groups in the league. Coincidence? Not at all. Great coaching elevates players. Now, let's talk about Robert Spillane. When he was with the Steelers, he wasn't anything special. But the moment he joined Patrick Graham's system with the Raiders, he became a completely different player. That's what a great defensive coordinator does. He brings the best out of his guys. But let's be real. Landon Roberts isn't Robert Spillane. Will he have the same impact? Probably not. But here's the big question. Is the difference between them really worth $8 million? Think about it. That's the price of a starting offensive guard in the NFL. Would I have been upset if the Raiders gave Spillane an $11 million contract? No. But would it have been a smart financial decision? Probably not. The NFL is all about getting value for your money, and that's exactly why signing Landon Roberts makes sense. At 30 years old, this guy plays violent football. You see it in every snap. He hits hard, he fights through blocks, and he plays with an attitude. For just $3 million, he's a bargain. This is why I believe the Raiders made the right move. Chances are, Roberts will outplay his contract, and when the time comes they can decide whether to keep him or replace him. At the end of the day, this was a smart, calculated signing, the kind of move that can make a real difference. Landon Roberts isn't just another linebacker. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. That kind of experience brings leadership, toughness, and a winning mentality to any team. But here's the thing. He's not Robert Spillane. Spillane made his mark with the Raiders in ways that Roberts likely won't. Why? Because Roberts is a run stopper, not a coverage guy. His strength is stuffing the run, hitting hard, and dominating the trenches. That tells us something interesting about the Raiders' defensive strategy for next season. For the past 2 years, Patrick Graham handpicked his linebackers, Spillane and Divine Diablo. But now, both are gone, and the Raiders are bringing in downhill, physical defenders like Roberts. That means we might be seeing a big shift in defensive philosophy. So, what's changing? It looks like the Raiders are moving toward a cover 3 style defense, similar to what Pete Carroll has run for years. If that's the case, expect to see a stacked box focused on shutting down the run. The philosophy? Stop the run first, then force the QB into uncomfortable throws. This approach is the opposite of what Vic Fangio does, where he plays 2 safeties deep and dares teams to run. Instead, the Raiders might be saying, "You want to run? Not today. We're loading the box. Try to beat us in the air." This shift in strategy makes sense, especially with the way the Raiders are building their roster. And as we move forward, it'll be interesting to see how they continue shaping this new defensive identity. But that's not all. There's another key signing that tells us even more about where this defense is headed. Let's talk about that next. A defensive gamble. High risk, high reward. Defensive strategies in the NFL are like chess. Some coaches play aggressive, some play cautious, but the best ones always stay 2 steps ahead. Take Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, and Patrick Graham, for example. These guys love playing 2 safeties deep, making the offense think they have an open run lane. But here's the trick. As soon as the ball is snapped, one of those safeties crashes down into the box. What does that do? It creates a split-second gamble. Will the defensive line win their battles? Will the safety arrive in time to stop the run? If the defense guesses right, the offense is trapped. If they guess wrong, big plays happen. Now, there's another school of thought, the Pete Carroll, Dan Quinn, and Gus Bradley approach. Instead of playing it safe, they load the box with 7 or even 8 guys. Sometimes they use lighter, faster players, converted safeties playing linebacker, to cover more ground and react quickly. That's where Landon Roberts fits in. Like Denzel Perryman, Roberts is a run-stopping specialist, a guy who thrives in heavy box defenses. That's why it's starting to look like the Raiders might be shifting away from Patrick Graham's traditional system to something closer to what Pete Carroll and Dan Quinn run. And guess what? They're not stopping there. Jeremy Chinn, a box safety who has also played linebacker, is another piece that suggests this change is happening. He fits perfectly into the mold of a Dan Quinn-style hybrid defender. But the biggest clue? The Raiders just signed an intriguing cornerback, Lonnie Johnson Jr. A former second-round pick with raw talent and untapped potential, Johnson's biggest struggle hasn't been skill, it's been staying healthy. But if he stays on the field, this could be a steal for the Raiders' defense. So, what does all this mean? It means the Raiders are building a new defensive identity, one that's tougher, faster, and more aggressive. And we're just getting started. Lonnie Johnson Jr., a gamble. Worth taking? Some players in the NFL are like hidden gems, full of potential but always battling injuries. That's exactly what's happening with Lonnie Johnson Jr. This guy was drafted back in 2018 or 2019, and whenever he's healthy, he makes an impact. The problem? Staying on the field. Low risk, high reward. That's what the Raiders are betting on. If Johnson Jr. stays fit, he could be a starting cornerback. If not, he might end up as a backup or even get cut. But here's the thing. The Raiders are playing it smart. They're not overspending on big names, but instead looking for undervalued, high-upside players. And it's not just about Lonnie Johnson Jr. Isaiah Pola-Mao is another name people don't talk about much, but he can play multiple positions. Safety, slot corner, even linebacker. And that's exactly what the Raiders are doing this offseason, loading up on versatile, hard-hitting players. Look at Jeremy Chinn, another guy who can move around the defense. The Raiders are building a unit full of flexible, aggressive playmakers instead of breaking the bank on a few overpriced stars. Now, let's talk money. At this point in free agency, the big $20 million plus contracts are gone. No one's getting $25 million deals anymore. Even top guys like Keenan Allen might have to settle for $15 instead of $20. And this is where the Raiders' strategy makes sense. Instead of throwing $48 million at a few high-profile names, they're spreading that money across multiple underrated but talented players. It's about getting value, not hype. And guess what? There are still some big names out there. DeMarcus Lawrence, for example, made $13 million on his last deal. But his market value now? Probably $6-7 million. That's the kind of steal the Raiders are looking for. And if they keep playing their cards right, this roster is going to look very different and very dangerous by the time the season starts. Next up, let's talk positions. Where should the Raiders focus next? Raiders' next move, smart spending or missed opportunity? NFL free agency is like a chess game. You either make smart moves or you overpay for past performance. The Raiders? They're choosing the smart path. Let's talk linebackers. Raiders lost a few, but guess what? There's still talent available. Devondre Campbell, experienced, But is he much better than Divine Diablo? Probably. But is he worth $11 million compared to Diablo's price? That's where things get tricky. If Campbell was available for $3 million, would you even notice the difference? Probably not. Then you have guys like Devin White, Eric Kendricks, Denzel Perryman, solid players who could come in for $2 to $4 million and get the job done. Here's the reality. In today's NFL, scheme matters more than individual talent. A good defensive system can turn an average linebacker into a star. That's why teams aren't throwing massive contracts at linebackers, corners, and safeties. Think about it. A top-tier offensive tackle will stay elite no matter which team he plays for. But a cornerback? He might look great in one system and average in another. That's why their salaries don't compare to wide receivers or defensive linemen. The offensive line dilemma: pay up or wait it out. The Raiders have some major decisions to make on the offensive line. Alex Kappa, $6 million, 1-year deal. Low risk, high reward. But here's the question. Why stop there? If you're already spending $6 million, why not go after someone like Mekhi Becton? If he's asking for $10 million, that's only $4 million more, and you're getting a massive upgrade. Other top-tier options still available. Brandon Scherf, all-pro level talent. Kevin Zeitler, dominant but underrated. Teven Jenkins, Dalton Risner, both solid, both available. And the best part? Their prices are dropping every single day. The market is drying up. The longer you wait, the cheaper they get. Past mistakes. Will the Raiders learn? Let's be real. The Raiders have thrown away millions on bad contracts in the past. Martavis Bryant, disaster. Corey Littleton, overpaid. Chandler Jones, didn't live up to expectations. Sometimes a player shines in one system but flops in another. That's why teams are being careful with spending big money this year. Look at Aaron Banks, $17 million. That doesn't make sense. Nate Hobbs at $12 million. Now, that's a smart contract. Even running backs, people say don't pay them, but $12 million for Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs? That's a steal. These guys can change games. These